Messages from the heart are usually heartful. They have meaning. There's a connection that you feel with whatever they decide, and that it feels right and doesn't hurt anyone and doesn't blame anyone and doesn't try to derive any excess from it except to do things because it feels like it's the right thing to do. Yes, is that correct?
Yeah. And I've been getting the sense recently that adab kind of came about or comes about because when you get a sense, you get used to the kinds of things that the heart tends to favor, then that teaches you adab. Because you go, well, even if I can't immediately hear my heart in this situation, based on my experience of what the heart tends to value, this is a good thing to do right now.
Okay. And that gives us things like gratitude, kindness, empathy, compassion.
Yeah, because like your heart never tends to go make that person feel awful, or go grab that extra slice of something even though someone else needs it, or like it doesn't do that. It might say weird things, but it never says nasty things. So it kind of gives you a bit of a, like, if you get a sense of what it tends to do, then even when it's a little bit harder, you can kind of remember that and go, oh, I don't think this is something that my heart would be happy with, or this is the kind of thing that my heart would be good with, even if I'm having trouble checking at the moment, I think this is a good default,
That's very good. I like that. That's probably a good way to think of it too, and how I've thought of it is that if I'm not sure what my heart wants, the adab is going to give me some guidance about what would probably be the right thing.
Yeah.
What do you think, Alamin?
I think for me, where I'm at is one, to start the obvious, to try to become quiet as possible, to enable to listen to the heart. The other thing that goes with that is the latif aspect of the heart. It's as you have mentioned, it is very, very subtle. For a long time, I've been coming in from the aspect of, what do I need to know and what's the answer, and but it's like, slowing down, and if I slow down enough, it enables this one to get the data of the environment around me, of whether it's people or whoever, and then checking in with the heart and seeing, as Millie was saying, what's the adab and what's the right thing. And I think I've been trying to practice with family, listening to my heart, and I think with especially with my own immediate family, because you're generally in a safe place, and you feel safe enough, the automatic reaction is to say what one feels and say what you want and what you don't want, etc., but maybe just trying now to step back from that and saying, okay, so what does this person need, and is this the right time? And sometimes I feel like I would like to say something, or I would like to get a message across, but rather than splurting that out, checking with my heart and trying to maybe do rabata with my heart, sort of saying, well, is this the right time to say this? Or is this just the time to keep quiet, and just trying to notice what happens with the heart and going from there?
Good. That's very good. What brings to mind is that for both of you, you've been learning unconditional love. And that's the kind of feeling we need with our heart as well. You have children, and there's nothing that you wouldn't do for that child. That's the same with the heart. There's no differentiation. It's exactly the same. That's why one of the things about the training of having a family shows you what the reality is. It's not woo-woo. It's not anything except what you live with every day.
Mm.
And you also get to see how nefs become initiated, or shall we say instantiated. The idea that they grow just like anything else grows. And you see it also within, as your child grows, you see it within yourself. You also see it within them, and you see a nefs beginning to gather, and you see it within yourself of like all of yours coming right back at you without any kind of veil. It comes right back in your face like any kind of splatter.
Mm.
I was going to say more on the same idea, but back on the positive side of it is I've been finding with kids at home and at school, it's impossible to have compassion for somebody else without that kind of rubbing a bit off on yourself, and the other way around. So like when you're saying, you got to treat your heart the same way as you would one of your children. It's a bit like that, like where it's like, well, you're so, understanding. You spend all this time telling everybody else to stop and have a rest, and it's okay, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And it's like, by telling those guys so often the things that I need to hear myself, eventually it sort of starts sinking in a little bit, and I'm finding myself be a bit more compassionate towards myself and a bit less alarmist about everything, because it's like, well, I spend my whole day trying to calm down people who are anxious and upset, and eventually it's like, well, hello.
Okay, everybody, just take a deep breath. Let's settle down. Take a deep breath.
It's sometimes the hardest person the person who at least wants to listen to that advice is oneself. It's much easier to help other people calm down than it's to be compassionate and reasonable within yourself, especially when you're a bit of a perfectionist and a bit, scared of failure and all that kind of stuff. It's like, I got a lot of school paperwork due soon, and I'm like, it's not perfect. I have to say, it's never going to be perfect. Doing something's better than doing nothing.
Why there's a clown school.
Yeah.
So some people at a certain age decide, I'm just taking myself too seriously. I need to go somewhere to remember how to laugh and how to make others laugh.
Play and laugh. Yeah, I've definitely been learning that one recently. Shake at school is just bringing the laughter back, because I had a point where I had to really, everything was too loose, and I had to really lock it down and draw some boundaries, and that was important. But then it's like you can go too far that way too, and it's like just trying to bring the levity back a bit, especially when you've got serious behaviors going on and you're trying to keep the mood light. It's a dance.
It is very much that.
Yeah.
And the dance changes according to the day and who's in the room.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's an impromptu dance.
It is. I just heard last night on the news that gibbons dance. It was the first time they saw any other animal work together in unison for the purpose of just dancing.
Wow. They're African, aren't they, gibbons?
Yeah. So that started me off in knowing that your heart is very much like a child, and it responds well to love, compassion, and care and empathy, is part of the training, is learning that that's how the heart works.
Yeah, we always talk about fighting against the nafs, and you do need to sometimes do that, but even to yourself, that the open hand, more powerful sometimes, like the gentle, compassionate, treating yourself gently and compassionately can have more of a lasting effect if it's honest and if it's sincere, you know.
Yeah, that's the trick too.
Yeah, we do want to fix this problem, but we want to do it in a way that doesn't generate backlash and resentment and regret, self-criticism and all that kind of those kind of things, because it's counterproductive.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of part of the flavor of maturity, that you can see the consequences of certain actions or attitudes, what the likely result of such an action or exchange will result in. The maturity gives you an understanding of, like, I have had enough experiences now to know that if I say that to this person at this time, it will ignite things that I really don't want to go into. That's interesting.
And also, there's usually whatever you want to say and whatever you want to get across and whatever is bothering you, there's usually a compassionate and loving way to do it. If you stop for a minute and find that way, again, is usually more effective.
Yes. And I think part of learning or the training of our own self is to continue to do that enough so that in moments of crisis, that's what you default to, rather than the old pattern, which is panic. So that's the kind of training that's deep, and then you see the payoff very soon. And as you know, we're tested to see, well, have you learned what you were supposed to learn? You either pass or you don't. And if you don't pass, then you go, I need more work, rather than becoming another victim and sabotaging the whole process by blaming yourself for various things, because that doesn't do any good either.
Yeah. Working with these kids shows me how much blaming others is linked to blaming self. It's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
People who default to blaming everybody else, they're really upset with themselves. And when I blame others, it's almost always when I'm feeling embarrassed or self-conscious or upset with myself about something.
It's an interesting maneuver.
It is. Yeah, it's like a defensive offense, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
It's like, well, that was your fault, so I'm not to blame, so I'm okay.
There's a Sufi tradition called Malamatya, which is it's a certain tarika, if I understand it correctly, where the Sufi's job is to take the blame. Going, I'm sorry, that's my fault. My bad. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. And I can see how that would work as a training and as a practice, because you go, why should you take that burden? You've got enough problems as it is. I can take it. I can transmute it. I can work on it and give it to Allah. Let you learn what you need to learn.
When we're playing handball at the front of the classroom, for brain breaks and stuff, these kids that I work with, they're really hypersensitive to losing or getting out. Yeah. So 90% of the time, I'll just orchestrate it so I get out.
Right.
It's just easier. So I'll be like, oh, I'm out. Oh.
That's it. Yeah.
And it's that kind of thing of like, because it's actually the person with more power can do that. Because these are little kids that they don't understand. They've got inbuilt hyper reactions, and it's just easier.
Yeah.
And so, when I do try and also build up their resilience slowly, but you start off by going, yeah, no, you're cool, I'm out, because then that way you're also modeling to them that that's the appropriate reaction. And then it all kind of becomes easier because it's like, oh, everything's safe,
Yeah.
And then,
yeah. No, that's definitely a good way to teach.
I just think like that's what you just said reminded me of that. Is like, that's the idea of like, if I've got the capacity then I can take that on.
Exactly.
And someone who doesn't have the capacity, they can't do that. So that's okay. Like makes sense like for a Sufi to do that, because it's like it goes so well with like the I'm not really here, like that it's not about me kind of thing.
Right.
I can see how that would be a really good practice.
I could also see reversing the rules, that the one who gets hit the most or who gets outed the most wins.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We should try that one day. Although you've got to be careful changing the rules on these guys.
I know. But I used to do that with my class.
I know.
In summer school, they'd all line up to the door because it's break time. So everybody rushes to be first in line.
Yeah.
And then I go, okay, everybody about face. Who's ever at the end is now the first ones. And we went out the other door.
Very clever. Very clever.
So flipping the rules every once in a while, just so it's not about being first or last. It's about being.
I get why there is rules and regulations for social construct and order, and also certain do's and don'ts. And I'm referring to also religion. But the heart, the heart necessarily does not always have to follow. And I'm being general because I'm thinking about.
Yeah, that's a little too general.
I might have to speak to you about something later, Sheikh.
But it's true that the heart sometimes breaks the rules in order to fulfill the deeper rule. My first thought of that is because it's what I do. Sorry, I always think of a movie. School of Rock is a great example of that, where he goes in, he's doing everything wrong, but his heart knows what he's doing. It turns out being the right thing, even though it's wrong. Because on a deeper level, there's what those kids needed, what he needed.
The thing about that is you have to be totally uninvested in the outcome. If you think this is what I need to do this, and it's about you, then you've poisoned it, and it can't work. It won't work properly. It has to be completely heartful. In the process, if you get, for example, fired, that's okay because you're not invested. You know what I mean? It has to be completely pure. If you're thinking I'm doing the right thing, that's louder than your heart. Your heart is just going to prompt you and say, I am happy with this. And you want to stay connected with being happy with your heart. And if it's worth it, you'll know it. And at the same time, the times that I've had this happen is like, I was supposed to appear angry. I really didn't care. But the social strictures of the situation demanded that I look angry. So I raised my voice and kind of laid down the law, but I didn't care. It had nothing to do with me. It was just kind of like, this is what's expected in this situation, and this person hasn't heard me or understood how this was running over, certain social taboos. So you lay down the law. And if they didn't hear me, that's okay. And if they got mad at me, that's okay. It was all right. But my heart knew it was the right thing to do. It was the first time that ever had happened to me. That's why I can remember it. It was kind of like, I have to look angry. I have to sound angry. I have to appear angry. And I don't really care. I love this person, but it has nothing to do with that. It's just clarifying some boundaries.
Right? It's definitely something that comes up a lot as a parent, want to raise your voice at your kids, but you have to.
Absolutely.
You have to be a bad guy, otherwise they turn into bad kids.
I can still remember with Misha, there's a certain time, I had to, be angry. I didn't care. I love him. But I said, listen, you have two dads. There's happy dad and there's angry dad. Angry dad can sound something like this, Or happy dad can be very loving and caring. Your choice. I prefer you choose the happy dad, but if you want an angry dad, we can do that. He said, happy dad. So whatever your heart wants, it needs to clarify, you have to look at the structure and your relationship in it and what is an ideal outcome.
Mm.
And then measure that against what are you willing to do? Are you willing to be divorced, for example? Will it come down to that? Is that okay? Or the person walks out of your life or whatever, whatever you need to do. And then there's the other one of like what you were saying before, Alameen, about sometimes you shouldn't say anything.
Mm.
You look at what the brain's saying. You also can look at what the heart's saying and going, yeah, this isn't the right time for that. There may come a right time and you have to sometimes wait for it.
Mm.
Right time, right place.
Mm.
Lots of stories about Sufi stories. There's even a story about Rabia, who she'd go by the gate to the city, and this guy was always out there crying, let me in, let me in. And it was about him praying to Allah, that he crying all the time. And finally she went up to him and said, go ahead, go on in. There's no barrier there. He goes, oh, thank you. Why have you waited so long? It's been months since I've been standing out here. And she says, got to be the right time and the right place. You were ready now. And as you know, with kids, there certainly needs to be a certain point that has to be reached for that gate to open, for the kid to understand.
Mm.
Sufi Piaget, I like it.
Sufi Piaget.
Sufi what?
Piaget, the
It's a-
educational psychologist. He discovered the...
Piaget. Oh, okay, got it. Yeah.
But there's a grown-up Piaget as well.
Yes.
Piaget for everyone.
Hopefully, eventually.
You might be 57, but you're not ready for this yet.
Still knocking.
Allah is in the family and Allah is in work. And so what is the difference between seeing Allah in your work or your family and, learning through that way and doing things like reading Quran and Salat and Zikr, and why do we do those things if Allah is in everything?
Every heart is unique. Every person is unique. And so knowing what your possibilities are for the sake of your heart to keep it connected is available. So it's kind of like, here's the buffet. You choose what you want that works for you. You don't have to do everything all the time. Do what needs to be done now for the sake of your heart. Sometimes it's just sitting on the bed, listening to the partner or the kid, the child, whatever, just listening to them. That's all that's required at that moment. That's prayer. That's talking to Allah. That's opening hearts. That's compassion. It's mercy. It's gratitude, and it's generosity.
Mm.
So it's just about that. It has to be just about that balance then, of like going to others and then, going back into your heart, doing the pragmatic things that need to happen, and then having space for listening and just being and fun and play, balance out. Yeah, like that's kind of the idea, right? That over time it becomes...
Mm.
It's learning to be present.
Mm.
Yeah, but see, it's tricky because sometimes, like, we all have certain tendencies where we there are things we tend to do easily and things that are more difficult. And so it's easy to for me to play with the kids or, go into my heart and contemplate and, those sort of things. It's harder for me to remember to hang up the washing or put the dinner on or.
Yeah. We all have stuff like that. Yes.
Remember the meeting that's coming up, So it's like.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Sorry for me. Just something that when we was talking is relevant for myself as well. But what I this morning I read, not sure if you've read it, Millie or Sheikh, the Shaker's like bullet points from her recent Sohbet, and what she was talking about was for us to reflect that Allah is everywhere. So wherever we are, we're with Allah to try and be present as much as possible. Just what Sheikh said. But in extension of that, she was saying to try and wherever you are and whoever you're with, to see Allah in that person and also try and see which name is manifesting itself in that person or in that situation. And I thought, I suppose it was just a really good reminder. I know Sheikh's spoken about this as well, but yeah, just listening to you talk about, the family and the washing and the meetings and yeah, I get caught up in that as well, but it's like, try that reminder of being present and seeing Allah.
Yeah.
Wherever we are.
Yeah. I think asking the question, where is Allah in this moment? And listening. I mean, it's one thing to ask, but it's another thing to listen. And then seeing what comes to you, being open to allowing your heart to interact with what's going on so that even when you're folding the laundry, you're going, so Allah, what are you showing me here? What is this? If you approach your life like that and keep asking that question, you will eventually get answers, and you'll begin to see that no matter what you do is Allah. But it's going, it's making a transition from the exterior and then learning how to flow back and forth, Zahir and Batin. That needs to be a flow, just like breathing is a flow. So as you breathe in, you're also breathing in, this is going into my heart and then is going out from my heart. So this even in teaching or in a session or whatever's going on, to take a moment to go, okay, Allah, where are you? What's going on here? What am I learning? What are you showing me? Sometimes it's just like, enjoy. Sometimes it's like, you should pay attention to this. This is a lot about you. And sometimes it's fun. Sometimes it's love. Sometimes it's learning how to set boundaries. Sometimes it's by learning something you had no knowledge of before. All of a sudden, boink! I had no idea there was such a thing. Because that's kind of the reality of it. It's ongoing. There's no end to education here, if you're looking for it. Of course, you can always just shut it down and go, I'm just going with the flow, man.
It's interesting, like sort of, what you've been saying, Sheikh, because I've just been, I don't know if sometimes it's your imagination but I'll mention it for the sake of, but because I have a little dog, we got a little dog, and the past few days it hasn't really been out. It's more Lisa's dog and Seraphina's dog, so I just take a back step. But the past few days it's just sort of like saying, oh, the dog needs to go out. And because it's a little dog, it doesn't really walk a lot, but it hasn't been walked. And I'm thinking, she really needs to be walked. And sort of been ignored, been putting it aside. But this morning, it was like, you really need to walk. And the dog was looking at me, and obviously the dog's always happy to go out. But yeah, we had a walk in the park, and Yeah, it was sort of interesting because I felt, I don't know, yeah, maybe you can let me know if it was wrong, but it was like I felt a little bit lighter, and the dog was a bit happier. But yeah, maybe it just seemed maybe trying to tune into the environment. I'm not sure, Shake. Maybe I'm just imagining stuff.
No, I think you got it right. I think the dog took you for a walk.
Yeah. Okay. Is that what happened?
Yes. So, by the way, I just put a Sohbet up from way back, from about 2005, that Sheikh Russ Jennings and I had, that he recorded for his podcast.
I saw that.
But it's, sorry?
I saw that you put it up. I haven't.
It's about an hour long, but we go over a whole lot of stuff about knowledge, what Sufism, Tariqa, Ramadan, Night of Power, just a whole lot of things. And it's really nice to review it and clarify. It's very clarifying for stuff that kind of, accumulates sometimes. So I found it really nice to listen to. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Amen. Ooh. Good to see you guys.
Thank you, Shake. Thanks, Smelly.
See you guys. Have a good week.
You too.
Bye.
Salaam Alaykum.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Salaam Alaykum, murids, seekers, curious, and interested listeners. We appreciate you and are happy to share our Sufi message. Your donation will help support our Sufi Center in Sydney, where we do zikr, sohbet, spiritual counseling, and healing services. We believe the message should be free, but it costs equipment, rental, services, software, and hardware to get this to you. So thank you for choosing our podcast among all the millions available. If you go to our website, AnsariSufiOrder.org, you will be able to donate through PayPal whatever you think this information is worth to you. Blessings and love, the Australian Ansari Sufi Order.